Hello, and welcome to Builders, the podcast where we journey through the ups and downs of building great tech products through the perspectives of those people building them. In today's episode, we're thrilled to welcome Job Rietbergen, co-founder and CEO of Alphadoc, as well as AI sales engineer, visual artist, growth marketer, and AI machine learning coach. A man donning many hats by the sounds of it. Now, Job's journey in the tech landscape has been marked by his innovative approach to developer onboarding with Alphadoc, where he's revolutionizing the way SaaS teams understand and utilize their products through interactive documentation. His work simplifies complex APIs and software development kits into engaging, user-friendly formats, ensuring that product documentation stays in sync with the fast-paced world of tech development and deployment. Job's diverse background illustrates a unique blend of creativity, technical expertise, and leadership. And today, we're going to dive into his experience, which bridges the gap between art and technology, reshaping our understanding of what it means to be a creator in the modern world. Job, a warm welcome to the podcast. How's it going?
Thanks so much, Lee. Really nice to be here, and that's a great intro. I couldn't have done it better myself.
Good to hear. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. It wasn't the easiest one for me.
It was perfect.
Fantastic. Job, where are you based? Tell us a little bit about your setup. Where are you living? Where are you from?
So I'm normally based in Amsterdam, working out of Amsterdam. At the moment, I'm traveling. I'm in New York.
Okay.
So working here for a couple of weeks, and meeting here with interesting founders, investors, and so on.
Oh, fantastic! So yeah, you're there. You're not there on a holiday or vacation per se. You're there to kind of meet founders, potential investors, or
potential investors, other founders, builders. I've a packed agenda with evening meetups and just mingling with people building cool things.
Fantastic. And yeah, we touched upon stuff that you've worked with, that you're working with now as well, and you've worked in growth, in marketing, and in coaching, right? In AI, machine learning coaching. Tell us a little bit more about your background in these different fields.
Yeah, so my initial background, all the way at the start of my working career, I started out more in marketing and business. So I joined a couple of companies that were really early on, such as a Rocket Internet venture that then grew over to 500 people in a few years. So I got to see sort of a really great look into the kitchen of how tech companies grow fast and what does it take. There it sort of naturally evolved into me getting into touch with the founders of Grow Tribe, which is all about educating people on growth, machine learning, data. So I joined them as the first employee, and we scaled the team to 150 people. And the fun part for me personally was that I was doing as head of growth and growth director, I was doing a lot of our own experimentation around growth, marketing, and just all around involved in how we could grow as a business. But I also got the chance to do a lot of coaching and implementation with teams that we were working with. So, growth teams, data teams, individuals into companies that are setting up use cases and that had to deal with, organizational blockers, technical blockers, all kind of blockers. And my role was often just trying to understand what is exactly, the blocker, how do we sort of escalate this, how can we get it solved as quickly as possible to continue the pace.
And these were other companies coming to you, or these kind of colleagues within the same company, or?
No, so these were teams inside companies we worked with. So we were working with hundreds of different tech companies, like startups, scale-ups, but also enterprise teams, like innovation teams in bigger corporations. And we were helping them with experimentation, with being more data-driven, with setting up experiments to help them grow.
Very interesting. And so all of these, experiences in very different fields, essentially, I would assume have kind of influenced your decision to co-found your current company, Alphadoc, right? You're a co-founder. So how many founders are there? Is it you and one more, or a couple of others, or?
Yeah, it's me and one other co-founder.
Okay. And in the company today, how old's the company? How many people are working in the company at the moment?
At the moment, we're 6 people.
Mhm.
We are operating for a little bit over 1.5 years.
Okay. Nice. And based in Amsterdam, then all 6 people, or?
Yeah,
Fantastic.
we made quite a conscious decision to get everyone to Amsterdam. So we have someone from Sweden joining us, someone from Poland, someone from Argentina, and we get everyone over to Amsterdam to do collaboration.
Nice, fantastic. And what then influenced your decision to found Alphadoc? Tell us a little bit about what Alphadoc is, what it does, and what influenced your decision to start the company.
Yeah, so my experience is that I've spent before starting Alphadoc, I had spent about 12 years working at tech companies. Often I had the luck of being very early on in these companies. So I joined this rocket intense venture when it was just a handful of people. I joined GrowthRap as the first employee. So I got to see, everything that comes with building a fast growing company. And I was just really passionate about doing that myself, because I saw a lot of the ups and downs in building it, but kind of wanted to do it for real. So I also quickly discovered that doing it for real is a completely different thing than being a first employee.
Right.
You get shielded from many things that you have to deal with on a daily basis as a real founder. Got a lot of learnings there as well. But one of my last roles, I was the chief marketing officer at a healthcare API gateway. So we were connecting systems from hospitals and other data systems in healthcare.
Okay.
And then we were selling and putting a API gateway product in the market, so that would allow people to connect with all of these systems much faster and easier. So our product was really complex, and we had to show customers, show potential users what all of the use cases and scenarios could be,
How
and
it
really
all works, essentially.
how it worked, and speak to their imagination. And often these infrastructure products is very untangible, so it's really nice if you can make it super visual and interactive, and really show people how it works, what happens if you make these API calls, what kind of data you might need to use across the whole use case. So that's we're basically, the product that we're building with Alphadoc is a solution to the problems that myself, but also my co-founder, experienced in previous ventures.
Fantastic. And your co-founder's background, what's their background?
His name is Dan, and he's coming from fintech. So previously he has a sort of similar journey to what I did. He joined the tech company as the first employee, and in charge of many things, wearing a lot of hats, but mostly focused on product management, and also developer experience. So their product was a payment gateway.
Yep.
So like a white label payment gateway. So they were selling this technology under the hood, like similar to Stripe or Adyen in the payments, but then specifically for selling it white label to other financial companies.
Yep.
So he was very familiar with all of the the challenges around onboarding customers, and doing this whole process of guiding customers to success and solution. It's a bit of solution engineering, customer success. It's just it touches upon different things along the sort of customer journey.
And tell us a little bit more in detail about Alphadoc now. Then, what is it exactly that Alphadoc does? What's your kind of typical user or customer? Let's say.
Yeah, so the typical customer would be like, now we're focusing mostly on companies that have APIs or SDKs.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the sweet spot there is really the companies that have a really complex or really large or hard to explain like API or SDK.
Mm-hmm.
So, we see a lot of use cases in fintech, in logistics, e-commerce, also developer and AI tools these days. So it's a lot of companies that have really big, complex APIs, and they want to, their business success is connected to how good people adopt their product and understand it.
Right, exactly. And so Alphadoc is simplifying how users of these APIs, those that are kind of integrating with or with these APIs, how they're essentially using it, and making the onboarding for those users, developers in most cases, then a much smoother process. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's developers, it's also other stakeholders that will frequently look at these things, but not in as much depth as the developer or the engineer that needs to integrate all of it. But that's why we come from this stance of we build visual documentation. So it's under the hood, there's a lot of complexity to make sure that we can handle all of the different APIs and SDKs that people throw at us. But then at the surface, it's what we create is kind of like it's a Notion-like platform in terms of like user experience, where you upload your APIs or your SDKs, and then we can create all kind of like diagrams or more visual ways of explaining it. So think about I don't know if you're familiar with a sequence diagram, but that shows how everything relates and what kind of data is being transferred from each of these steps. So that's, for example, something that we could create, or we can create tutorials on top of your APIs or SDKs. We also frequently create what we call code walkthroughs. So, for example, companies that have SDKs or have sample applications that they want to show to their users, then we can help them create this sort of interactive way to go through the code and get explained what's happening inside of it.
Okay. And essentially, like if we were to kind of rewind, years, if a developer was being onboarded to a new product, to a new team, they would have essentially years and years ago been given like a manual, and someone would have said, here's a manual, read through this, essentially figure it out for yourself. This is how everything works. But you've kind of made this, you've kind of automated the process, then made it all a kind of seamless onboarding for developers, but also different user types, not just developers. Have you had to tailor that that kind of onboarding into the product specific to the user? In this case, you've got a developer, and let's say another stakeholder who might be, I don't know, a marketer or something. How do you onboard them to this product?
Yeah, that's a good question, because indeed there's different use cases. So we usually, what we try to do is we try to get on a call with the people that actually need to use our product. So and depending on that, we'll kind of like adapt accordingly. So we often, with the companies integrating our product, we set up a shared Slack channel where we answer all of their questions, whether they're technical or non-technical. So we try to, as much as possible, adapt it to their use case. So if it's indeed a marketer or product manager that is maybe less technical, we focus mostly on the aspects of, the value of the product is basically like you can do these things yourself without having to like shoulder tap engineering the whole time to make like small changes and to do deployments of it and so on. So it enables you to go much faster and to be much more empowered. So that's the things we focus on, but then obviously it needs to be integrated and included into the company. So there we like whenever we get on a call or need to fill out questionnaires from companies on how these things work in detail, we go much more into depth on the technical side and the APIs, and we have like integrations with GitHub, so you can automatically push new versions of your APIs to us, so that we will do the versioning across the whole platform and so on.
And then you'll kind of automatically update the documentation as well.
Yeah, all of the underlying things then update accordingly. So that's often the engineering team. What we saw is that often the engineering team, they maintain like something like an API spec, which is like just a list of all the possibilities. And then there's another team in the company, they maybe do more product documentation, or they describe more use cases, but these things often don't really connect.
Right.
And that's also something that we solve. It's like whenever something changes, and that can be done automatically by the engineering team and the workflow that they have, then it also will change in the in sort of like the more visual like side of the product.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just thinking whilst you've been talking that developers must love this if it's being updated kind of automatically, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. And it's also for them. It's they don't want to focus on this stuff. They want to focus on building like the core product. So all of these things, we can take it off their plate, and it helps them to create that good UX and onboarding for their customer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, documenting one's code takes a hell of a lot of time. So you were talking about how Alphadoc is more suited to the bigger companies, essentially, with more kind of complex setups, more complex APIs. The fact that you have to then account for lots of different APIs and different considerable, I assume, ways that these APIs can be built and set up.
Mm-hmm.
How does all of this kind of integrate with your product, or how does Alphadoc kind of take all of this into account? How have you built the product around these kind of insane amounts of essentially different kind of setups, like I said?
Yeah, good question. So what we did is we started building from a standard. So whenever you create APIs, you can use different standards. You can make like a GraphQL or like a REST API. We focused on REST APIs at the start, and then specifically around a standard that is commonly used called Open API. So it's not to be confused with Open AI.
Right.
But yeah, it's Open API, which is standard for how you like create and document APIs. So that's where we started with. So we, funny enough, you would think a standard, you sort of like covered probably like all of the edge cases in a couple of months. But there, the interesting part is that even though it's a standard, people really use 1,000 flavors of that standard. So it can get quite complex. And yeah, whenever we had more people coming in and joining the product, because we started building and we had like a group of design partners, which was maybe like 10 companies.
Okay.
So you only have 10 sort of different scenarios, right, that you can test against. But as soon as we opened up the product, then you really saw like hundreds of people coming in, and all of the APIs in this case and the complexity that they brought to the table. So there was a good time for us to really learn based on the usage.
And it's a team of 6 at the moment, you said, right?
Yeah.
What roles do you have in the company? How have you been building this from the very start? Have you been kind of outsourcing some of the development work then, or have you been building it all in-house? What are the different roles and positions that you have in-house at the moment at the company?
Yeah, so we started just the two of us, Dan and me. And then we got a former colleague of Dan who is a really good product designer. And that was so we hired him for a couple of weeks to help us create prototypes. And his prototypes are essentially like a real product, but in Figma or in like, low-code tools that can be clickable and you can click through it, but it works really well to show what you're thinking of building and how it would work if you click on different parts of the product. So we created that in 2 weeks with him. And with that, we built a marketing website. We did a big launch on social channels to get as much traction as possible, and to just get in more validation conversations.
Fantastic. And what stage would you say Alphadoc is at right now? A year and a half into its journey. You're out in New York, potentially then trying to find an investment. Have you already had investment, or are you seeking that new, or what?
Yeah, we have investment from quite a big group of angel investors.
Okay.
So they invested in our pre-seed round. These are like founders of big companies that have experience with the problems that we're trying to solve mostly. So it was an easy sell to get them on board because they know the problems really well.
Interesting. And you using your sales background presumably as well to convince them naturally. But we also heard in the introduction that you've worked kind of AI sales engineer as well, right? How do you see AI transforming the sales landscape in the next 5 years? Out of interest, and how are you at Alphadoc utilizing AI in? We can talk into within the product, of course, but also in terms of selling the product.
Yeah, what you see now is that basically there is a sort of explosion of AI products, right? Whether it's in sales, whether it's in developer tools, like there's AI products for basically anything, from agents that help you with all kind of software development things to co-pilots to, you name it. We built some features with AI in our product. We didn't do it all the way at the beginning because first we had sort of like lay the foundation, and it's like I see it as like you built a house and you're not gonna spend time decorating it once you before you have the house in place.
Right.
So we did that first, and then we built some things around, for example, allowing our users to give their users like an interface that they can ask questions about. The use cases, about the APIs, about their product. So it becomes they can just, it goes way beyond the normal search, and it actually answers your questions based on the content that our companies or our users have.
So you're basically using all that data and information that those companies have as this kind of context for the users to be able to kind of prompt and kind of have this chat essentially with like essentially a chatbot, right? And kind of get real time feedback and information, right?
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned the AI sales engineer, but that's also one of the things that we are now focusing on, is really helping our users to be by their side. So not just give them a product that they can serve to their users, but also give them kind of like an AI employee or an AI helper that helps them with, this whole technical sales. Because there's often many questions that come up, and you might need, domain expertise combined with the know-how that lives internally in the company and might be scattered across different tools, whether it's like the developer documentation or a CRM that commercial teams are using, or tools that are used by different people in the company. So we try to sort of connect the dots there and to give like a helper that you can use to ask questions, to in the future also create content. So anything to make those integrations and sales processes go smoother.
Yeah. And is this part of, how do you package the product together then? If this is, it sounds like a separate feature, you could say, or a separate product. Do you have different solutions then that you're selling, or are they all packaged together in one, or how does this work?
Yeah, it's kind of like a feature that that became bigger and bigger.
Okay.
So right now it's still all in the same product, and it's just a feature of a larger platform. But we are also thinking about splitting that off and having a more dedicated, giving it more attention. So right now we have the SaaS platform, and there's different pricing plans. So companies can either use the whole platform, or one thing that we also released recently is that they can also decide to, for example, use only our API references or only the code walkthroughs that I explained to that can highlight what's happening in an SDK or in an application. So we made this all embeddable, meaning that anywhere you can use JavaScript, you can just embed our components, and you can do it on a marketing website, even you can do it in your product documentation, in your SaaS application. So anywhere where you want to explain your API, your SDK, your code, you can integrate it in a much more robust way, because we started with iframes, which was like a more it was the quick way to test whether people were interested in it, but now we have a much more easy to use and more robust version of that with JavaScript embeds. So that's kind of like the two ways how you can use the product. You either use the whole platform or you embed it into whatever you already have running. And then this like sales engineer, that will be ultimately also a separate offering.
And talking about offerings, what I saw on the website that you had the essentially different offerings, right? Different kind of pricing levels and everything. Tell us a little bit about that for those listening and interested, of course.
Yeah, so we really we started out just having a landing page. There wasn't even a product, so we launched. Then we just our objective was to get as many calls as possible and just learn from the people and learn from what they need. So that was really valuable because we got a lot of insights in what people wanted. But then there's a moment where you actually need to build the product. So that's what we did. Then we you built a product and you have this group of design partners. But at one point we realized we wanted to have more learnings and from a bigger group of users. So we opened up the product. We did a launch on Product Hunt, and then we just said, okay, we will remove the we will just have a free plan, freemium. So it starts free, and then you move upwards to like a starter plan. We have a growth plan and a more like tailored enterprise plan. And you actually get a lot of value in the free plan already, because we want to show people what we're worth, how they can use it, and then get into conversations around, okay, what exactly do you need? And then maybe, it's not enough to stay in the free plan. Some stay in the free plan, and that's also fine. Then, we still get value, because often these companies, they are really happy with our solution, really happy that it's, costing them very little. So they also help us with like marketing or
word of mouth.
It's word of mouth, and it's also it has this little sort of like powered by at the bottom, so it also helps to for other people that look at this, because there's also this flywheel where engineers are looking at it from the end user point of view, but then you have this powered by, so it also helps to
show them that kind of social proof as well. Really interesting. And would you you were saying around a year and a half into your journey, any cool milestones that you've hit so far that you can share with us, in terms of maybe it's number of users using the product, or anything that you guys are considering milestones at the moment?
Yeah, I think one of the big milestones for us is that we a few months ago we did a big launch on Product Hunt, and there, like from that, we had like hundreds of companies signing up, wanting to use the product, and literally all over the world. So from Africa to Australia to Europe, US, so all over the place. So I think that was a big milestone for us, that we show that companies find value in the product.
Fantastic. And what's the plan? I'm not saying you're looking too far forward at the moment, but what's the plan over the coming months or year, or however far forward you guys are thinking?
So it's twofold. So on one hand, we'll focus more on this embedded strategy, so that companies, we just want to make it really easy and low threshold to get started. So that's why we'll focus on that part. And on the other hand, we'll also be focusing more on the like the sales engineering side of things, where we really want to be valuable in that process of selling to your customer, because that's at the end of the day where revenue is being made and success is being determined. So we want to be there to be helpful.
And then we kind of circle back to AI in sales, or in your sales process. What do you think is the ultimate kind of promise of AI in sales? And what would you say you might be missing, if missing anything, to kind of get there at the moment?
I think at the end of the day, you see a couple of things. Like, you see that on one hand, there's like this like overload of communication, because it gets so easy to create things, right? Like, you can just use a couple of tools, connect them together, and start spamming people. So I think that's what we don't want. And that's like a little bit what you see now. Like, if I look at my inbox, like so many emails that are supposedly personalized, but they don't really, it's sort of fake personalization. It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
It almost has like the opposite effect, right?
Exactly.
I get what you're saying. I think exactly the same because there are a couple where, in the beginning I thought, oh, well, this is almost like freaky. This is so personalized. And then it had a specific kind of impact. I thought it was interesting, but the more you kind of receive those, whatever it might be, emails or messages, you realize that, this is no longer personalized or in an impactful way for me. It doesn't have any kind of impact in the same way. So, well, what do you think the kind of way forward is here?
So I think if we do it the right way, then people will have a lot more time freed up, because they don't have to worry about all of these sort of like mundane tasks that take up a large part of their workday. So people I speak with, they say like 5-6 hours a day. Like, we are working on answering questions and helping people like get everything they need along the process. So if we can take off like those things off their plate, that they can focus on much more meaningful conversations, and they can have the right conversations, hopefully with the right people that will help them. So I think it won't be on autopilot, but if we can sort of take care of all of the mundane, boring stuff, so that people and companies can just focus on the people where it actually makes the areas where it actually makes an impact.
Nice. And you mentioned at the start your previous experiences. One as an early on employee at a company that grew to 500 plus employees, right? And then you had a second employee, one that was like 150 plus. I'm interested to hear a little bit about from those experiences, what are you taking with you into this new journey of yours, both good and bad, both high and low?
I think one of the things that I'm always a big fan of is sort of like this, what I call a bottom-up strategy. It's like you start by really thinking about like, okay, what am I trying to achieve here? Like, how would that look like? How would it sort of like, you sketch it out, you instead of like coming up with the strategy and then sort of like drilling down, it's like, okay, what's the user story here, right? Like, what is the value that we're trying to go for? How would that actually sort of like look in practice in a product? And then work your way up from there. And I find it always very helpful to think about like the experiment design. So always having sort of like this little document, maybe it's like one pager or even less, that sort of like really summarizes, okay, what are we trying to achieve here? Why are we doing that? What does success look like? So that's really helpful, I find, because often if you put these things on paper in a really short format, you really force yourself to like cut out all the noise. And then I often found in other companies as well is that once you start sharing this, then people actually admit that they also weren't really sure on the exact implementation of it. So it helps really to create these sort of like small documents to like list the experiment design and what we're trying to achieve in order to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
And we also mentioned in the introduction that you are or you were an artist, right? A visual artist. Tell us a little bit about this. Is this in a previous life, or like is this are you still working with this? Is it kind of tied into your work in any way or form?
I wouldn't say it's like so much connected to what I'm doing today, but it is kind of representative for me that I always like to connect different areas. So I'm always sort of trying to connect business with engineering and technology and all of the sort of different expertises, like to eventually get to a good result. So that's really like I'm kind of like a jack of all trades and semi, master of a few, and sort of can connect the dots together to make things happen. So that's like whether it's in creating art or whether it's in working with technology. I like to really mix things up. But my artist work is mostly actually really autonomous. No, not so much digital, but more mixing like real techniques, like with paint and printing and all kind of different techniques to get a cool output.
Yeah, and I've heard that you've taken part in some exhibitions in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Nice, cool.
Yeah. So
and this creative outlet, then, the dynamic, a dynamic profession like yours. What are you kind of reaping the benefits? Would you say from this kind of creative side that you had in the past, and kind of um, plowing that into Alphadoc now?
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about
100%. I think it's one of my superpowers.
that.
So I can connect all of these things when I see like tools for creative or for different areas of the business. I can often see a lot of potential of, I can use this in this way or connect it with this one, and then create like some marketing materials, and then automate this, and then so I often when I try out new things, and I love to try out new tools, and nowadays there's so many that you can really like spend your days trying out new tools. So I'm trying to sort of like test a lot of different things, and then seeing how we can get business value from it.
Yeah. Any interesting platforms that you're testing at the moment?
At the moment, I'm testing a lot of things around extracting data from like websites, so like web scraping,
Okay.
for example, because now, like a number of years ago, it was still, you had to build a web scraper, and then if they would change something small on the website, then the whole thing would break down. But now with all of the AI tools available, you can actually build a much more solid like scraper to extract, for example, data that we then can use to help also. Let's say that you're going to speak with a customer, then we can also do part of the research on what kind of customer, like how could you position your product. So that's like why we're looking at these tools at the moment. But it seems like there's a lot of cool things happening there.
Fantastic example, and that enables you to understand that customer who you're meeting on a completely different level, and kind of prepare for that meeting. Any other cool examples or use cases that you've been?
I think what's really interesting is now around visual creation of video or image assets and so on. So I've been playing around with some like visual editing tools to create like small like videos, things like Descript, for example, or to generate voiceovers with things like 11 Labs or other. There's a lot of interesting things happening there where if you know how to connect different tools together, then you can actually get some really exciting results.
Really cool. And yeah, you mentioned just a few minutes ago that you were essentially a jack of all trades, and I can relate to that as well, particularly early on when you're building a company. Obviously, it's essential that you are able to kind of don a lot of different hats, that you become this jack of all trades. With the company now 6 employees strong, what vision do you have for the company in terms of number of employees and roles that might open up in the country? In the company, and what how do you see your role moving forward? Obviously, you're CEO, but you're doing a lot of different jobs essentially as CEO as
Yeah.
well. How do you see the evolution of the company in terms of roles and positions?
Yeah, so I think we will probably in the coming year, let's say we will probably focus mostly on getting more builders on the team. But we also notice now that, as I mentioned earlier, our product is a really good fit with larger companies. So we're in a lot of conversations with companies about using us, and those conversations, they are sometimes requiring some more enterprise sales knowledge, for example. So we're also going to focus on getting some more power on that side. But yeah, we mostly want to have builders at this stage because we just know that there's still a lot to be built. We have a very ambitious roadmap, so we definitely need to have more people on that side. And we're not trying to scale too fast. I think we have a really good synergy in the team. Everyone is really well adapted to each other, so that gives a lot of speed. Because if you open up, the step from 6 people to, let's say, 20 is a massive one.
Right.
So then all of a sudden,
experienced it before, right?
Yeah. So you have a few of these sort of phases where you go through, and just that is a big one. So we want to stay relatively small until we really are able to scale up.
Yeah. And those, when you mention builders, you're referring to developers and whatnot. You had one product designer that you said you worked with for 2 weeks. Who are if aside from yourself and your co-founder, who are the other 4 people in the company today? What roles are they filling? Is it marketing and sales? Do you have a developer or 2 developers working in house as well, or?
Yeah, we have everyone in-house, and the product designer that I mentioned, he actually got really excited about the product after working with us for a couple of weeks. So he joined us as a full-time product designer, but also his role is really diverse. So he does product design, he does product management, he does some engineering as well. He can also code. So the roles are my co-founder is doing also product and some coding. Then we have 3 more engineers that are focused on just all around building. They have their specialisms. One is more focused on front end, but they can all do a bit of everything.
Fantastic. And yeah, I would just be interested to know a little bit more about, you were working with AI and machine learning coaching, as you were talking about before. Any trends in these fields, machine learning trends, let's say more specifically, any kind of machine learning trends that you're excited about, and why?
I think what we back then when I was doing this, for a lot of companies, we found that some of the problems that I run into all the time, they're still existent. So, for example, getting the data across different, maybe silos in the company and getting it all together and creating like the data set that you can run some predictive models or other kind of machine learning models on.
Mm-hmm.
That's often proved to be the biggest challenge. So, and I think nowadays, even now, you want to sort of like there's a lot of options with LLMs and AI, but you often want to also include that or include your own data sources to and to apply some LLM AI on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, so it's interesting. On one side, you have a lot of innovation. On the other side, some problems they still keep coming up.
Mm-hmm.
What I think is really interesting is that back then we had to do a lot of like for example feature engineering. So you have a data set and then you need to like create a data set that is that can be put into like a predictive model, for example. And nowadays this can be done much easier because the LLMs can understand and extract much more like context and in a much more structured way than we previously could. So for example, to go from, let's say, unstructured data to structured data, that process is much easier. And that can help in many applications if you have a structured data set.
And your product in particular, then, when talking about kind of accessing and extracting data, you presumably rely on your customers, your users, to provide data to you, or provide essentially access to their API or the
Yeah.
APIs that they're using, right? Have you run into a lot of trouble in that process? Can it be quite messy?
Well, we have before we even like touch anything AI related, we have our own systems and our own like parsers that parse that
Right.
data that's coming in from our customer, whether it's an API or something else.
Mm-hmm.
So the most challenges are actually in that part because we need to make sure that we understand their product in detail.
Mm-hmm.
So we that's on our side, and then we use like other like AI models as well.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And aside from Alphadoc, then, of course, I would imagine my next question, the first thing that's going to spring to mind would be Alphadoc. But what's the one thing that you wish was included in every developer onboarding process?
I guess it just needs to be extremely applicable. So like ways to filter and sort of like make it super tailored to your profile or your experience or your the company that you work for. I think that's really important because often there's a lot of documentation, there's a lot of like different
Yep.
sources of information, but
Yep.
just making sure that whatever is shown is the best thing to show for that moment for that person. I think that's like really exciting that we're like able to do much more personalization than before.
Yep. No, yeah, and I think a real kind of attractiveness and kind of benefit that I see here is that oftentimes, and I've known kind of in our company in the very over the past few years, you've had someone join, a developer join, for example, and they'd want access to or be asking a question about one thing, and you just basically send them to another person who would send them to another person who would send them to another person.
Yeah, 100%.
And this is obviously problematic, time wasting, etc. So
Yeah, that's even in like startups or smaller companies. This is like a big topic. Often people are asking the same question 20 times, and
exactly.
like data is scattered all over the place. And if you need it, you never know where it is. So
Yeah.
like to make that more streamlined and to make sure that the end user and the end customer benefits from it, I think that's like a big thing.
Exactly. Yeah, one question I have to ask, it's very common now in our fields. But how do you think the rise of AI driven development or the tools specifically? We've got GitHub Copilot as like one of the main ones, of course. How do you think these tools will impact the role of software developers in the next 5 years? Let's say 5 years is a long time into the future at the moment. But how do you see the kind of biggest impact playing out here.
Yeah, I think, and that's what you already see. It will take a lot of the boring, the mundane tasks, like to write boilerplate code or to like to understand quickly what's happening in different parts of the code, or like what does this function do? You know, like all of that stuff. I think that will be much more efficient. But there's many other things that are also involved in creating a good product or building a good product. So I think those things we will just have more time to focus on the things that matter, and the things that really don't matter that much, like we'll just go much faster, and it will be more of a. I think it will take a bit before we have this sort of full autonomous agents that are building a product, but they can definitely help, as a side sort of co-pilot to help with all kind of things, to write code, to understand code better, to do many of the mundane tasks that we like. Actually, a lot of people don't really want to do anyways.
No, exactly. It's almost kind of making their work more enjoyable and enabling them to focus on the more interesting parts of the job, right? 100% agree. It's much more kind of augmenting the developer, let's say, as opposed to replacing. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like 10xing your existing workflows, your existing output. So I think it's more people that will use these tools, they will go much faster, and they will outcompete people that don't, I think. Because they're if you can work like 5 times, 10 times faster, then I think that's a competitive edge that will bring you quite far.
Completely agree. I think it's kind of jump on board or essentially get left behind, right?
Yeah.
But as a founder now, I'd just be interested if you have any pieces of advice for any other kind of fellow founders or entrepreneurs out there listening.
I think a major one is always just try to put your product in the hands of whoever wants to use it, whoever wants to listen to you. Like pitch your ideas often, see what the feedback is. Never let a chance go unwasted to try to sell or pitch or explain people what you're doing, because often help or interesting insights can come from any direction. So if you don't have a product yet, just like use whatever you can create. Maybe it's images, maybe it's sketches, maybe it's whatever, to try to just get learnings on how people would actually use it. And then the moment you have something, like just put it in people's hands, because you shouldn't wait too long with putting it in people's hands, because then you will likely make a lot of assumptions. Even if you have a lot of conversations and you learn a lot, then the moment you put it in people's hands, that's when they really show how they will use it, or how they won't use it, maybe. So that's, I think, really important.
That's the feedback you want. Absolutely. Good advice. Anything else you'd like to mention, Job, before I wrap up here?
I think I think the launch early, I think, is a really important one. Also, try to create these like experiment design cards, or whatever you may call it, where you just always try to get to the bottom of the problem that you're trying to solve. How are you going to solve it? What are you doing? Like, what are you expecting to come out of it? Because these documents, they can be shared across the organization, and often they are shared among many people that need to be involved, and it works really well to get everyone on the same page, and to also just speed up your work.
Fantastic. Well, that brings us to the end of another really, really insightful conversation. Thank you, Job, for joining us,
Thank you.
opening up about your experiences, challenges, and a lot of the wisdom that you've gained throughout what's been, what sounds like a really, really colorful career so far. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you too. It was fun.
And thank you for those tuning in, listening. And until next time, keep building, keep innovating, and keep pushing those boundaries. We'll see you next time. Ciao.